Probably the most intense 2 weeks of my life.
At first I responded, I said, is this a drill? Because I thought, this is Western Pennsylvania. We don't get tornadoes in Western Pennsylvania very often.
This is our first test under fire, I guess, when this happened.
But it went straight through the county. It might not have been all that wide of a swath, but it was a long swath. That thing before, it stuck close to the ground for a long ways.
I was just, amazed that we didn't have more serious injuries.
Starting that very first next day, the people were coming from everywhere to help those people.
They lost their homes, they lost their personal belongings that had a lot of memories, their pictures, and things like that. Those are things that you can't replace. They're gone. Gone with the wind, I guess you can say.
Well, the whole evening was it was like everything was so still in the air. You knew something was not quite right. We had taken a walk, probably about an hour before that. We went down the road to where the campground is, which was part of the tornado damage. And we stopped at some friends of ours. We sitting out on their back porch.
I was preparing to cook out, and so I had some friends. Plan was to have friends come by and have a casual evening with some burgers.
It came up very quickly, though. It was just a matter of 20 to 30 seconds, and we saw it rumbling through, and the sky lit up, odd color.
Beautiful night, then the whole thing went crazy. I mean, all over the county. It was all over the county. Within minutes, it was gone. And cleared back up, and it was a clear evening.
And then we started hearing the noise, which everybody says sounded like a train, and it did. To me, it did. And that's when we decided it was time to go to the basement. So it wasn't very long till we realized that it was a tornado coming.
The sky was very dark. We knew something was going on, and somebody said, "Where's a tornado that went through the shopping center out there in Big Beaver?" So I took family home and I went to work. Didn't see them for a few days then. But
the communication was as I was contacted. Landlines, they had a phone tree, so to speak, where multiple calls would be made to multiple people. And I was on the list, and I happened to be home and got the call, and therefore responded.
From there on, for the next week, it was just busy, busy, busy.
this, like I said, kind of caught us off guard, if you would.
This particular storm, and even then national weather, this storm actually came, we always look at stuff from the east into the western part of PA from Harrisburg. This storm came from Ohio, so we didn't get that much of a notice.
Came here Route 18, Jamesway Plaza would have been right here. This is where it crossed the river, went over what is the present Fox Run Golf Course here, and went up Balone Valley Road, and then it hit Edgewood Road and part of Glenda Drive. Came past a drive-in theater where it took large damage, through the woods behind our house, and then it came up on either side of our house. There was damage, came through here, went back towards Brush Creek Park and did a little damage there, and then it started up through Wayne Township, or Marion Township again, and headed towards Evans City and Butler area.
That North Sewickley was devastated, probably bore the brunt of residences that were damaged and businesses.
I think the valley held the storm in, really, because it just, that whole swipe right up through over North Sewickley, over the drive-in and right up into Marion Township. Somebody 2 blocks across the way wasn't even touched. Wasn't even touched. It was just, it could have been so much worse.
Initially, I didn't think it would be nearly as bad or as extensive and long range as it was. And after seeing it, I was surprised that we only had 1 fatality in the township and there was only 2 others.
30 years, it's amazing that there weren't more, that there weren't 50 or 100 people killed.
I remember it was fairly quiet outside the hospital. I mean, there were 2 or 3 ambulances there, But as I walked into the ED, the noise and the sound level was incredible. I remember the first thing I was asked to go into Trauma Room 1. I remember that's where the young lady who I believe was the ticket booth operator at the drive-in had just been brought in. It was almost simultaneous arrival between her and myself. I think the number was 30 to 50 patients, so you need extra people. In the big scheme of things, I think this one went very well, and we were fortunate not to have a lot of critically injured patients.
For what a disaster storm it was, how fast it came, how fast it gone. But what was just as amazing, the recovery efforts that was supplied and supported by everyone to help those families try to get their lives back to normal.
Russ Cheeto, bless his soul, he's gone now, but he was very active in all that, even at the second meeting, as to how we did things. And
Russell actually developed a stress fracture in his back from being on his feet for day after day, and he probably spent a week or so in the hospital. And then he hobbled around with a cane for a while.
But he wouldn't quit. That's the type of guy he was. He would not quit.
First few hours, of course, were rescuing injured and accounting for the deceased. And then after that, it was a matter of coordinating crews that were cleaning up debris from the roads and basically trying to help people get their lives back together.
we had help that first night from Elwood City Police Departments, Dougherty Township, Rochester Township.
Even back in that day, Allegheny County, Director Cheeto talked with the directors up there, and I remember that night they were bringing trucks, they were bringing heavy machinery, they were bringing lighting to support Director Cheeto in Beaver County. When the county declared the disaster, which they have to do, then the Board of Commissioners declared the county a disaster area because more than one municipality was damaged. So the state will then go to the federal government and say, this is multiple counties, multiple states, we now need federal assistance. That's why you started seeing some of the other people coming through the scene, then Bush and all them, along with the governor and everybody come through, because that became a federal disaster for recovery issues.
This sort of became the central location because it was kind of in the middle. And the fire chief at that time, who was D.L. Sutherland, now deceased, offered the building, and basically it became the command center.
Today we call it a DRC, or a Disaster Recovery Center, but it was run so much like, even back in the 80s, that they ran it just like that. Wherever everybody came in to report, they brought the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, everybody like that. They brought them in there to start talking about the recovery efforts. And the ladies auxiliary at that firehouse were just tremendous. I mean, they were taking care of feeding the people in the Grange Hall and everything out there, trying to help out the residents, stuff, that everybody that lost something. You couldn't say enough about North Strictly Fire Department.
The firemen were using, well, the trucks, they have a Jeep too. They were looking on the roads that were closed. They had to use their Jeep and stuff, checking for people injured, possibly killed or anything like that. Our job mainly, and we called out our auxiliary police and anybody could help, different police departments, was to patrol the roads and control the access to roads back where they were at, try to stop traffic. It wasn't necessary. People were stealing right out of people's yards. We had reports of it before they stopped it. So we started giving out handwritten cards, piece of paper, whatever, with a people's name on it, permitting them to go back to their houses to clean up and stuff. My whole time was spent doing nothing but people coming in and asking for permission to go back on their road where they lived, and I was doing that, and I said, this isn't going to work. Probably created more hard feelings, keeping people, even they were legitimately, from going to their houses, or they didn't like to be told that they couldn't go to their houses. And we only kept that in probably for another day.
I think the initial focus was the shopping plaza over there. There were a lot of cars in the lot, and basically they were all damaged severely. Windows are blown out.
There was so much of the merchandise and the damages done to the structure that it was almost oh, this is a total loss. Big area of concern was on the far, if you was looking at the plaza on the far left, was that state store.
That whole area was permeated with a smell of like whiskey and wine and things like that. That thought sticks with me after all these years, just the smell.
And because of it being alcohol, they had to secure that scene, and hence why they looked for extra security to take care of that particular area, and then they just took care of the whole area because there's so much merchandise and the damage is done. Being the home of a nuclear power plant, that has given us a lot of benefit over a lot of people that don't have that type of a facility in our county.
The training was similar, but again, the focus was along the lines of, okay, is there a nuclear contamination of a patient or multiple patients? Is there trauma involved if there's an explosion? Those type of things. So the hospital was prepared in that way. At that time, your hospital was on your own. You know, you had what you had your own supplies. If something happened, it was your responsibility to do the best you can to deal with it. Now there are backup systems where we have, not really joint ventures, but we have associations with not only EMS, but other hospitals that we can call on, and they too can call on us if there's something in the region and even in the state. But I don't think we've had anything that I can recall that was created that many patients that quick.
We have groups now which we call VOAD, Voluntary Action Groups, where we pull all those groups in. Your ministerial societies, your churches, all your volunteer organizations, obviously your Salvation Army, your Red Cross, your housing. And also, when you start donation, you have to have a management of that to take track and keep track of whatever it is that's being donated. So one, it's done right. And two, that you just keep an inventory of what's being donated so it can be accounted for. We want to tell people to be weather conscious on everything they do, okay? Because that's how fast it can happen. Hey, we're prone for tornadoes. So we try to do as much as we can on weather training. And the state and the Commonwealth has done also, where we do yearly exercises, both with the schools and everything else, for statewide weather exercise. The national weather has progressed so far on severe weather watches that we're getting alerts on any type of weather change anytime in advance. And now we're looking at weather, we look at a lot of our weather coming in from Ohio, because now we see that could be just as severe or worse than coming in from the other side. Anytime you have multiple areas like this, it's imperative that you get that in place. And those are lessons learned from disasters such as this.